Hello and welcome to NewsX podcast. I am Richa Kapoor. Today I am joined with Dr. Jajit Bhattacharya. He's a digital policy expert. Welcome to NewsX podcast, Jajit.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Jajit, I have you here today because I wanted to talk about, digital arrest and cybercrime. Scams, frauds online have increased tremendously. And something which I got recently aware about was digital arrest. People are nowadays being, targeted to something called digital arrest. Can you explain our viewers what that is?
So essentially, there is somebody who calls you up on some pretext saying maybe something that you have sent has got a problem, or your courier has a problem, or something that you have done has a problem, and it's a serious crime. And then they'll start putting very significant amount of pressure on you in quick succession. Okay. They'll create a situation where they've called you and said, well, either we have the questioning on online, or you're free to come down to a Mumbai police station or a Chennai police station and give your bayan over there. Now, obviously, if you're in Delhi or in Uttarakhand or some other place, you'll prefer that, let me use digital. Government has become very modern, and so let me use a digital tool and finish this off because, well, I haven't done anything illegal.
Yes.
And that's when the pressure starts coming into a next step of the story, where the other person says, well, I'll then connect you to my senior who will then take the proceedings further. And you will wait and you will hear this conversation and you will hear things like Jai Hind and so on and so forth. So it's very genuinely acted out. And pretty soon they will come back and say, well, we have found what you have done is extremely serious, but we're trying to help you out. And, you need to do this and to do that. And while we're doing all of this, please make sure you don't switch off your video, you don't call anyone, and we're keeping an eye on you. And essentially what they're trying to do is delay you and catch hold of you for about 24 to 48 hours, by which time they've taken your bank account details, got it registered, because it takes 24 hours for the bank account details to be registered, and then get the money transferred out. And they do it so quickly and so authentically and so forcefully that you really fall for it, and you submit yourself to what they want you to do. And that's what really digital arrest is, though. So you can't move, you have the laptop or the phone in front of you, you can't take any calls, and you are continuously in front of it in a very stressed situation.
Jajit, explain one thing to me. If you are a person who's smart enough to understand that scams are going on nowadays, and you have no parcel coming or going, or you have not sent anything, would you not believe that this is something not correct and I'm falling for something wrong? Or do you consider that they use such kind of mannerisms, or they actually trace things down about you, that they know that you might be wanting, a FedEx might be coming for you from maybe Japan or Singapore or something like that?
Everything is driven by either greed or by fear. Right?
Yes.
And sometimes it's a combination of both. So sometimes you think, oh, well, it's a parcel that's coming for me, right? Or the fear that that somebody has sent my parcel. They'll also quote you your Aadhaar number and your details. So you know that, they know something about me, so it must be true. Now, the point is that the digital arrest is not the only form of fraud.
Yes.
The parcel thing is not the only form of fraud. We may fix it, thanks to the Prime Minister going on the national radio and talking about in Mann Ki Baat. More people get to know about it. Tomorrow, another little scam will come up.
Yes.
The point is that even the smartest of people in the society will fall for it.
Absolutely.
We have had the chairman of one of the large companies, who's an extremely clever person, who fell for it and lost an extremely large amount of money. So it is not that, you are smarter than me or the other way around.
One always considers it would not happen to me. You consider yourself to be less vulnerable than the other.
Exactly.
We know a little more about it, and therefore we can be slightly more careful. The ones who are not so educated, the ones who have not heard the Prime Minister talk, or don't have people around them who've actually faced it, the staff that works for us and people around, they face it and their entire income goes away. Who's responsible for it?
No, very good question. In fact, we used to run a fintech, and every day we would have 10, 15 such cases coming up. Many times, and the cases we would get at that time was somebody trying to get rent. Somebody coming and saying,
Yes.
my house is on rent. They'll see it on one of the advertisements, and then they'll say, oh, I'm from the army, I'm Havaldar something. Please send your QR code and we're going to make a payment to it. Or here's a QR code I'm sending, scan it and you will receive a payment. Now, people don't even know that you don't scan a QR code to receive payments, you scan a QR code to make a payment, right?
Yes.
It has Basic as that. And typically we saw old women who were falling for it. That was a profile analysis that we did. The point is, where does the money go? The money goes not in cash, it goes in a digital form. It goes from your account to somebody else's account.
Yes.
Now, every account when it is opened by the bank is KYC. It's know your customer, steps are taken, which is why they say, please give your Aadhaar number, your Aadhaar card, I'll come to your house and check who you are, and so on and so forth. All these checks are done, and diligently the bank then opens that account. Then why is it that the money which goes fraudulently into somebody's account, we can't trace out who that person is? Because these accounts are opened up with shoddy KYC in it. Now, in all these cases that we have seen, all these frauds that we have seen, I have not come across a single case where the bank has been penalized. If the bank, which is playing such a critical role, is not getting penalized, why will the bank take any step to make sure that their KYC is proper?
Absolutely. I think this is very similar to how when the terrorism had increased and you realize that the SIM cards were being bought on fake IDs, and wherein when we guys would want a SIM card back in the day, it would be such a difficult task. It still is. And they would have so much of verification. So do you consider that in some point the government should now start putting in pressure onto the banks that they need to be far more penalized, or there should be a better way of doing this?
No, I think the better way is that those who are actors in this system needs to play a more proactive role, which they are not, clearly. Because as I said, where is the money going? It's going into your account, right? I mean, into the account of the fraudster. That KYC should have been done. They cannot say the money was taken out in cash overnight and it went away.
Yes.
First of all, the money goes in on a T+1 basis. So if the transaction happens today, the money is held for a day and it's then paid the next day.
Yes.
I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people telling me that they called up the bank immediately, but the bank said, no, you put the OTP in, so you are responsible. Now the money is gone. Now that means they have not even trained their staff to handle this properly.
Absolutely.
The staff wants to wash up their hands and go home and go to sleep. Whereas, as you rightly pointed out, people are losing their entire life savings. If it's 1 lakh rupee, maybe for you and me will survive. But for somebody who's serving us tea, will not be able to. That's their entire life savings, and the callousness with which the bank is handling it is incomprehensible. And I think that can only change with a very strict policy of penalty coming in on the banks. In addition, we were talking about that we get to know that there's a fraud happening. Now I get to know a fraud happening, you get to know a fraud happening, and then what happens? Do you have a mechanism where you go and say that this phone number?
That is exactly what I wanted to ask you next. That if you have now we say Truecaller suspected scams.
Yes.
You get about 20 calls in no period of time. So but you can't be marking all of them, and sometimes people might just mark a wrong call as a scam as well. But is there a portal that we can go, or is there a number that we can dial and say that this is we have experienced a scam, I hope somebody else doesn't?
So unfortunately not. We have tried it umpteen number of times. Again, we have sent representation saying that we actually need a middleware which connects the ordinary citizen like you and me who knows that there is scam happening, and with the banks, and with the police, with the I4C, which is a body under MHA, and with the fintech organizations, so that the moment a transaction happens, they get to know that there is a potential fraud. Now, we are not saying it's a fraud. We are saying it's a potential fraud. Please look into it more deeply, right? And the point that you mentioned, that I might mark one of the numbers accidentally a scam. Now, one person marking doesn't make it a scam.
Absolutely.
Right? That has to be a statistical check. All we are saying is that let's put that information, let each of the actors in the system, which is the banks, the fintechs and so on, take their own call. There is a lot of algorithms available. There is AI available. You use it, but you first collect this information. Right now, that is not happening, unfortunately.
We need far more filters than we already have. Do we have any in place?
We have got very limited amount of filters. For example, you took the example of Truecaller. Now, Truecaller is a standalone system. Does it integrate with the banks? No. Yes. Does it integrate with I4C? No. Does it integrate with the fintech organizations? No. It doesn't integrate with anything. It's just a feel-good thing on the phone.
What, according to you, and you are an expert for this, what are the policies that are needed to be pushed with the government, or the government needs to put ahead for such things to take in place? And are there any that are happening as of now?
I think one, we need to start penalizing the bank. As simple as that. Why am I saying that? Not because I'm after the blood of the bank. Why I'm saying that is because the banks have the wherewithal to then push the government and all other stakeholders to start putting this middleware I'm talking about. See, this issue has come up because of technology, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, it was technology which created the problem. It is only technology which will solve the problem. We are not building the second part of the technology. We could build Aadhaar at a scale which is unimaginable in the world. We are 10, 15 years ahead of US in terms of our financial systems, right? We need to go faster and solve the problems that we are facing now, which is something that we are not seeing happening.
There are no solutions to the issues for sure.
There are solutions to the issues. There's
Okay.
very clearly that there are solutions to the issues, but those solutions are not being built because it's falling between ministries. It is not under MHA. It's not under Department of Financial Services. It's not under Department of Banking. It's not under NPCI. What is it under then? Who's going to look into it? All of them have to look into it jointly.
Yes.
Right? And that's where the role of the government comes in. It is a complex problem to solve, but it's highly solvable, which is where I'm saying that if we start penalizing the banks, then automatically they have the wherewithal and the heft to go ahead and move the system in order to solve the larger problem. And at the end of the day, as I said, if banks are supposed to do the KYC and they deny bank accounts based on KYC, then they should be held responsible if money goes into that bank account and then it vanishes.
Yes.
Otherwise, what's the point in imposing such a huge societal cost of doing KYC if it is of no purpose? Then don't put KYC.
Absolutely correct, Jerry. Thank you so much for speaking to us and making it very clear for our viewers to understand, because majority of the people consider that, unfortunately, the thought process, oh, the fraud happened with me. I have seen a recent RBI ad also, which was made to say if a fraud happens with you, you should not feel ashamed that, you fell for the scam, but it's something that is wrong happened to you. But there is a solution out there. Thank you for pointing that out. And we hope that the government listens to you and pulls out a policy which does penalize the bank, because it is, at the end of the day, people's hard-earned money which goes.
Absolutely.
Thank you for speaking to us.